Welcome in to this week's episode of Beyond the Script. Today's episode is recorded live on Substack. So if you hear any dramatic pauses or me interacting with the audience or anything like that, that is why, because this episode is live. So today we are going to dive into how to get paid to tell your story, which basically means how to turn your life experiences into a digital offer that you can sell online. So this is something that I teach inside of my containers. This is what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down my freebie, which is how to get paid to tell your story. I'm going to link that in the comments. So if you want a copy of it, you can grab a copy of it. Or I'm sorry, I'm going to link it in the show notes. This is also the methodology that I teach behind my Experience to Income Lab and inside of my coaching container, my private one-on-one, which is your Experience to Income VIP. So anywho, that's what we're going to get into today, how to get paid to tell your story. And mind you, we're going to do this a little bit different. So my method is you can get paid to tell your story and turn your lived experiences into a digital offer that sells without having to be an influencer, without spending all day posting on social media, or without having to overshare and share every single detail of your life. Because who wants to do that? Who wants to share every waking detail of their life on the internet? Some people do. I personally don't. I like to live a private life. I like to take experiences that I've had and turn them into frameworks for other people to follow. But overall, like I like my life to be private. I'm not one of those like lifestyle influencers. I don't share a lot of pictures of my family online on my public social medias. I don't share I share like minimal behind the scenes. Behind the scenes for me is like making a cup of coffee or, doing some work in my office or whatever, right? Like that is my style of showing up online. And my style is really through teaching. And that's what I'm going to teach you today is how you can do this without having to feel like you have to just bear it all for the internet. So let's jump in. First of all, what I want to share with you is this method that I'm going to teach you can work for multiple types of offers. Okay. I have created and sold several types of digital products. My very first digital product came from my corporate skills. I'm going to give you a brief rundown so that you actually know what's possible for you. So, my very first digital product came from my corporate skills, and I was able to turn my corporate skills into 3 digital products. So, the very first one that I had was a sales ebook. And I believe it was called The Ultimate Guide to Selling Your Business Services. It was a sales ebook because I had a corporate sales background and I know how to run full cycle sales from prospecting to to booking, like through discovery calls, through referrals, all of that. So I turned that into an ebook. This was way back in 2019 I had a newborn on my chest. So I turned that into an ebook and it sold. I sold it for $27. I sold it on my private Facebook page, like friends and family. I have friends and family who are like entrepreneurs and stuff. So they were like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to buy it. So they bought it. I also sold it through Gumroad. I was on Gumroad back in the day. I then learned about what a niche is. So once I learned about what a niche is, I took that same ebook and I targeted fitness coaches. I targeted personal trainers, okay, who wanted to get into fitness coaching. And I repackaged the ebook. I changed the colors. I made it specific to that audience. So I changed some of the chapters inside and stuff. And I took that ebook and I sold it. Again, I sold it for fitness coaches, for personal trainers, and it was how to start your personal training business and book clients, okay? And so that sold, and that sold even better than when it was a sales ebook. After that, I took that same fitness ebook and I turned it into my first ever live workshop. It was called Fitness Business Bootcamp. This was back in 2021, okay? And I coached personal trainers on how to start their personal training business, how to get clients, and how to do the sales cycle. What I did with my experience in sales is I saw a gap in the fitness industry because I used to sell personal training packages as well. I saw a gap. These people know how to train. They can get you in the best shape of your life, but they might not be able to they can't articulate it, right? They can't sell it. They can't sell it well. That's where I came in. So fast forward, what we're doing is, for those of you who are tuning in late, we're just going over the possibilities of digital offers that you can create, and then I'm going to jump into the framework. So fast forward, I learned email marketing through selling my sales ebook. I got really good at email marketing. My email open rates were like 50 to 60%, and I was able to sell an email. So I turned that into a course. That was my first ever course. So I turned that into a course. It was called Soul-Led Storytelling for $1 Million Emails. And I called it that because one of the people I had worked with was able to get a six-figure launch through my methods. So I had that email course that sold. That was the first time I ever experienced passive income. I was at a wedding. I had two sales come in at the wedding. I'm over here drinking a Corona, dancing on the dance floor. And I had two sales come in at the wedding and I didn't even notice. Like I was not on my phone, nothing. My now husband, who was my fiance at the time, we get back to the hotel and I'm like, I made $200. I was so lit. Okay. So that was what I did next. Then this is where you can really take any life experience and turn it into a sellable ebook. So after postpartum of my second child, this was in 2022. I had a very difficult time adapting. I had a hard time adapting to having a toddler and a newborn. And I felt like I think I had postpartum rage a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. And so I figured out this method to like let the household be calm, right? And not chaotic through my own like chaos. And so I called it the Mindful Minute Method. And I took that and I turned that into an ebook. And it was called Mom's Journey to Mindfulness, Embracing Calm in the Chaos. And it was how to be mindful as a mom of littles, right? Especially it was specifically for moms who did not grow up in a calm household. They had no idea how to regulate anything. I took that, I sold it. Next, I went on, I had been on a spiritual awakening most of this time, but I started to learn intuitive writing. I took that and put that into a course that sold. It was called Intuitive Writing Mastery. That was how to get in touch with your higher self through writing. And then I've also done business clarity meditations and journaling guides. When I grew my TikTok very quickly to 1,000 followers, I created a TikTok growth guide. I sold that over on Facebook for $7. And there's one other, the self-trust restoration. That's like my most recent that comes from the spiritual side. And that is rebuilding self-confidence and self-trust within. That is also through intuitive writing. So my point in all of this is if you can take an experience that you had and if you can name it, if you can take it from point A to point Z, right? And you can name that framework, you can sell it as a digital product. You can sell it as a digital offer. And the beauty about doing it this way is it's not that difficult for the simple fact that your sales method is also your story. So your story ties into everything. It ties into what the offer is. It's going to tie into the sales methodology, and then it's going to tie into your marketing. And boom, now you've got community and sales. So with that being said, let's jump in to the framework. So the first phase of this framework is to identify your sellable story, okay? And like I said, this is in a PDF guide. I'm going to link it into the notes so that you can grab a copy and you can go through it yourself. But if you're tuning in, grab a notebook and write these things down. So one of the first things that you will have to understand is that everyone has an experience, a skill, or a season of life that they can guide someone else through. A season of life would be like my postpartum, right? That's a season. I'm not in postpartum, that early postpartum for the rest of my life. So I want you to start thinking of some of the things that you have walked through and how those moments shaped who you are today. I want you to think about the identity patterns. So who were you at the beginning of an experience and who did you turn out to be afterwards? Okay, what did it teach you? What did you learn? Because that's what you're going to want to pass on to your clients. So, for example, did you navigate a challenging divorce? Are you somebody who had to go through a divorce and learn how to not be reactive and learn how to have these healthy co-parenting boundaries with the person who you have fallen in hate with, right? That can be turned into a framework and a digital product. Okay. Did you survive postpartum as a 2 under 2 mom and build systems that made life easier? I did. That can be a digital product. After my second postpartum, I had one more baby. They're 16 months apart. And then I said, okay, that's enough. But anywho, if you did and you have a system that you use, you can absolutely turn that into a digital offer. Did you teach yourself a skill? Sourdough. I use this example every single time I go live about this topic because I am still astounded by it. Many years ago, I was on Podia. This was like 2021, I believe. I used to use Podia for my digital offers, for my web design, everything. And Podia has this featured section they did back in the day. So they had these features of people who had turned experiences into digital products. This person had a sourdough starter course. It was how to get started baking sourdough. Now, this is when millennials were going through their midlife crisis, and we were like, we got to have sourdough for everything, and it's got to be homemade. So this person made $250,000 that year, $225,000 or 250,000, somewhere in there, that year, selling this course on sourdough starters and how to make sourdough bread. And it was a moduled course. He gave examples, all of that. Made $250,000 teaching sourdough. There is not a single skill out there that you can't turn into that you can't turn into profit. Okay, so think about the skills that you have. My very first profit online for my digital product came from my corporate skills. I had a sales background, so I figured out how to package that. So if there's a skill you taught yourself, sourdough, budgeting, time management, content creation. Are you really good at growing an audience? Are you really good at managing your time? Do you do time blocking? Are you great at budgeting? Are you somebody that people are like, people want financial help all of the time. Budgeting is a skill. It's a skill that I don't have, but budgeting is a skill. So if you have a skill like that and you can map out the steps, you can absolutely turn it into an offer. And then the last, are you the person people always come to for clarity, support, direction, or advice? Is there something that you have that people ask you about? So, like for me, for example, people will ask me about like confidence. People will ask me about self trust. People will ask me, once I got into where I was like, hey, yeah, I do know how to strengthen intuition. People started asking me, well, how do I tune in? How do I strengthen my intuition? What does meditation look like? Right? Different things like that. That's why I was able to turn that experience into an offer. So think about that. What are you the person that people come to for a certain thing? Okay. It can be how to braid hair a certain way. It can be how to do press on nails that last for 3 weeks, right? Different things like that. If you've got a skill and people ask you about it, it can be turned into an offer. So for those of you tuning in, with your notebook, I want you to grab and write out what I like to call a credibility list, which is a list of the transformation skill or problem you have solved for someone else. And I want you to ask yourself, is this something I had to figure out on my own? What was I missing that I wish someone had given me? Like, in that messy middle, as one of my mentors calls it, where you're like, damn, I don't know what's going on right now, but I'm losing my mind. What does Cardi B says? I'm losing what should she say? My medulla. Anyways, what do you wish you would have known during that period of time, right? Think about that. What did you learn through the experience? That's the biggest thing, because if you're going to turn it into a digital product, you're going to be teaching somebody to go through that experience. So what did you learn through the experience? And where have you become the go-to person for others? So write down to answer those questions in your credibility list, okay? You solve a real problem for yourself or for someone else. I'm sorry, this is how you know it's viable. If you've solved a real problem, either for yourself or someone else, someone has asked you for help, advice, or clarity on this before, you had to learn it the hard way, you had to experience trial and error, or you didn't have the guidance, or maybe, and that is subjective, right? Because when I was learning about my own identities, I definitely had guidance. Like I had a mentor on it who helped me navigate it. But then there was a lot of things I had to learn on my own because she can't get inside my head, right? So guidance is subjective. Just keep that in mind. And then think about, can you map out these steps you took even loosely? So on your credibility list, when you look at your list of things, is there something that sticks out at you where you're like, you know what? I can say, first I did this, then I realized this, and after that, this is what changed. Because if you can do that, then that is already a teachable framework. Okay? It's not hard. So and then a quick mindset shift is you do not have to be the expert. If somebody a few steps behind you can benefit from the shortcut, then you're good to go. Okay. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to take that credibility list and you're going to turn your story into the framework. So for example, let's use the morning routine. Let's use a morning routine example for moms. So let's say you have mastered calm mornings with all your children, all your little rugrats running around. Okay. I haven't, but let's say that you have, then what would you could have you could have a framework that is called the chaos to calm morning routine, right? And what did you learn to map out these steps? So for example, maybe your step 1 is that you prepare the night before. So maybe you're targeting moms who have a chaotic morning routine, but they don't prepare any single thing the night before, and they are always scrambling and they're running around trying to figure things out. Step 1, prepare the night before. Give them examples of what they need to do the night before. Maybe they lay out the clothes. Maybe they have breakfast basics preps. Maybe they have the backpacks ready. Maybe they have, the toothbrushes out, like whatever it is, right? Maybe they have like all shoes and bags and stuff by the door, what the prepping the night before. Step 2. Maybe step 2 is connection and intention. Okay. If a mom is up in the morning trying to get the whole household out the door, trying to get the whole system running, most of the times what's missing is the connection piece, especially for smaller children, right? And so then they're feeling, I know that happens in my house. If I don't spend time to connect with my children, well, then like they're a little bit more antsy. I'm a little bit more antsy. Everybody's all hasty, right? So maybe the advice is step 2 is like wake up 10 minutes earlier to allow your children to be talkative and connect with you and fill these connection buckets. Okay. Oh my God, I have a typo in there and I put that out. That is embarrassing. Oh, you need to fix that. Okay. And then step 3, timer for tasks. Step 3 could be something like setting a visual timer for each task, right? So that you and your kids can see what the times mean. You can color coordinate it to where they can see, okay, at this time I need to be done with breakfast. At this time I need to be brushing my teeth. At this time we need to be out the door, right? Maybe that's a part of your method that helped make the morning calmer. So right there, we have 3 steps and then boom, you're out the door. That is a framework, the Chaos to Calm morning routine framework for moms. So look at your list, and from your list, pick out what you could do step by step. And if you can do it step by step, then you have a framework. Here is another example of a framework that would be like in the spiritual and identity framework. So example 2, from self-doubt to self-trust. So maybe you went through a spiritual awakening, you learned intuitive writing or healed patterns you grew up with that you kept self-sabotaging. Once you were able to do that, you were able to like make a lot of money, right? So self-doubt to self-trust with money framework. So the framework could be inside the journaling, meditations, and mindset shifts. So, for example, if I were to take my experience as a framework, boom, spiritual awakening, I hired a mentor. Okay, that was the first thing I did. That's a lie. That was not the first thing I did. I had a spiritual awakening. I learned how to meditate. That was the first thing that I did. So, the first thing that I did was I was like, okay, I recognize that things are not as they seem. How can I like double down on this, right? So I went and I started with some basic chakra balancing meditation. So I might tell somebody, like, if you want to learn how to trust yourself, you're going to want to start with meditations. Then you're going to want to start with journaling. Then you're going to want to follow up with journaling to really see what beliefs are going on beneath the system, or beneath the surface. So now you're doing your journaling. The more that you journal, then you're going to see, okay, what are some micro commitments that I can honor? Maybe your micro commitment, the one that changed my life, which is so simple, was when you're thirsty, drink water. Because that signals to your body that it can give you signals and you'll trust yourself to do it, right? So it was something as simple like that. Maybe it's just drinking water when you're thirsty. Maybe it's, actually taking the time to prep a meal. Maybe it is going for a walk every day. But whatever that micro commitment is, make a micro commitment. Okay. So making a micro commitment, then that's a part of the framework. Now you have your micro commitment. You're going to do this for 30 days and you're going to see that you now have a lot more self-trust. You're able to make decisions in your business. You're able to make decisions in your life and you're a lot calmer. Okay. So that would be like a self-doubt to self-trust framework. 3 steps that they can take to build their self-trust within themselves. So from your list, your credibility list, what are 3 to 5 major shifts or milestones you experienced on your way that got you from point A to point Z? And when you look at this, don't do more than 5 because that is way too much. Don't do more than 5, but write out like the major shifts or milestones that you experienced along the way in 3 to 5 steps, 3 to 5 teachable steps, okay? And think about where you were at the beginning of your journey and who you are at the end, because that is what is going to be important to this. Now, the next phase of this 4-part framework. We're almost done, y'all. Phase 3, package your experience into a digital offer. So you have your story and your framework. Now you can turn it into a digital offer that you can sell on repeat. Selling on repeat is the key piece here, because you wanna keep making money off of it, and not just like that's what I love about digital products. They don't have to be one and done, like, you just keep making money. You create it once, but then you just keep making money off of it. So, there are several ways to, package your experience into something someone can buy. An ebook, that was the very first thing that I created was an ebook. Obviously, I'm on Substack, I like to write, it made sense for me to have an ebook. Think about what your output capabilities are. Are you somebody who likes video? Are you somebody who likes audio? Are you somebody who likes to write? Okay, think about that. So, someone can buy an ebook, a masterclass, which is you getting on video and teaching for a certain period of time, usually about 60 to 90 minutes. You take them through the entire process, you teach them, boom, you package and sell that. A self-paced course. This is my second favorite thing to create. I love me a course, okay? A self-paced course. You take your framework and you break that down into modules. And that is a self-paced course. You can do a little mini course, a little 4 or 5 module course. I am about to become famous for those. I'm telling you right now, because that is what I love to create. Most of my stuff is broken down. The Experience to Income Lab is a 4 module, or I'm sorry, a 4 module course, so like a mini course. My Scribe Activation self trust restoration is a 5 module course. Um Digitalize Your Expertise, that's a 7 module, that's a little bit more intense, but same thing. I like taking these things and breaking them down into bite-sized videos. So that would be a self-paced course. A guided journal. Okay, if you have the framework and you're a little bit more on the spiritual side, people need to do things, you can do a guided journal. A paid audio series is another one. These are becoming popular. They're called like private podcasts, right? So if you're somebody who just can get on and talk and activate people like that, you got a digital offer. Live class or intensive. Similar to a master class, but they're more in depth. Okay. So like an intensive is longer. It's going to go on, probably longer than the 60 minutes. You're looking at maybe like a 2 hour, 3 hour type of thing. And the last thing is a bundle of short trainings. So if you do a bunch of master classes, you can that are similar in topic, you can bundle them all into one package, and that is a digital offer. So, like I said, when you think about your offer format, there's two things I want you to think of. One is what will be the most digestible and efficient way for your audience to receive the transformation. So, is your audience somebody who wants to read? Are they watchers? Are they listeners? What is the best way for them to receive the transformation? And the two, what is the simplest and most efficient way for you to deliver it without overwhelm? So there are certain frameworks that deliver better through video versus writing, right? So like if I'm teaching on something spiritual, that is going to deliver better on video than it is through written word, because there are how-tos that I need to explain. Okay? So think about that. Think about the best way for your output as well as the best way for consumption. And once you have that, you have a product. And I want you to keep this in mind too. Just because you turn one product into an ebook does not mean that you can't turn it into a course later, or that you can't turn it into a masterclass later or something like that. Don't forget my sales ebook, I then delivered it 3 different ways. So you can do that in due time. Let's see. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm getting all congested. Again, I just got over being sick from last week. If you heard last week's podcast, you know I sounded rough. Anyways, let's see. So, in packaging your experience into a digital offer, you're going to want it to have a name. You want it to have a clear title that is direct. I used to be all about like the fun and catchy titles. The problem with those is if a confused buyer doesn't buy. And so if your title is a little bit confusing, if it's like, well, what could she mean by that? And you're not already established within your niche. So for example, like if you're not known for something already, then you're going to want a clear and direct title. Now, if you're known for something already, then you have a little bit more leeway to make your title a little bit more fun. But, you know, if you're still establishing your branding, if you're like putting your feet on the ground, you're establishing your space, you're going to want something clear. So for example, email marketing for beginners, a simple starter course for entrepreneurs wanting to grow and sell their email lists using Threads, using Facebook, using ads, right? Something like that. That is extremely direct. The Calm Home method. a 4-step guide for new moms who want to reduce daily chaos and establish simple rhythms in their morning routine. That is extremely direct, right? So think about directness in your offer. Okay, and the last piece is the sales piece. So this is how you're going to selling through story-led content. This is how you're going to sell your offer. So the way that I have always sold an offer, it is always tied back to me sharing a story. It's either me sharing a story, me explaining the skill set, or me teaching somebody in the content. Okay, those are the 3 ways that my offers sell. So it could be your story. It could be a client story. If you helped a friend, you can share your friend's story with their permission. If you don't have anybody's permission, omit the names. Don't be putting people's business out there. Okay. But with storytelling in content, this is what allows your audience to see themselves in you. Your story is what gives people the hope that there is a way out of their current situation, that they're able to actually get to the point Z that they now see you in. So, one of the things that I like to remind people is when you pop up on these apps and you pop up on, social media or wherever you desire to be, and people find you, they are finding the current you who is out of the situation. They are seeing the you who has the thing all together, right? They're seeing like they're seeing the elevated identity version of you. They're not seeing the before. They're not seeing what was, the struggles that you faced. They're not seeing any of that. They're seeing who you are now. So what storytelling and content does is it gives them the opportunity to see themselves in where you were. So they see you now, but then you say, actually, I wasn't always like this. I used to drink a fifth of vodka every single day before I got sober, right? Now they're, excuse me, oh my goodness. Now they're like, oh, okay. So she actually had the struggle. She actually has been there before, right? When they see that you had postpartum rage with 2 under 2 and you learned how to calm down, that mom who was sitting there in postpartum feeling absolutely helpless and is scrolling on either Threads or TikTok or wherever, and she comes across a piece of your content that is sharing your story about where you've been, and then she sees where you are now, well, now she has hope. Now she's like, okay, if she could get there and she's where I am right now, like I can do it too. The interest becomes piqued because there's something you could do. So story-led content allows your audience to understand what you've lived, what you've learned, why your offer exists, because people might see the offer and be like, why is this here? What is this for? Like, not necessarily what is this for, but like, can this help me is a better way to put it. How you can help them, and then what's possible for them through your guidance. Now, story selling, story-led sales is not trauma bonding. I said this at the very beginning of the episode. You do not have to go and share all of your darkest, deepest secrets. You don't have to share anything that you're not comfortable sharing. What you just need to share is the steps that you took to get from point A to point Z and a little bit of behind the scenes of that point A piece. Okay. And that is what makes people buy. So people buy from emotion and logic. And what you want your storytelling to do in your content is you want it to you want them to, you want to get their emotions going, right? Like, oh, I can feel myself through this person. The law of divine oneness. We are all connected. This is why people feel things so deeply when it comes to strangers on the internet, because we're all spiritually connected. So you want them to feel something through your content, like, oh, okay, this activated something in me. I feel an emotion towards this, right? And then you leave them kind of thinking like, well, okay, but what do I do next? Like, what's next? Then that's where the logical part of the brain comes in, and your offer, your digital product is the logical step to get them to their next point. Your digital product is the logical solution because you are now leading with story-led sales. Okay. So here are some platforms that you can get started on. TikTok is great for high reach and video-led storytelling. If you are the type of person who just wants to pop your phone out and say something real quick and post it on the internet, TikTok is a great place for that. Threads is great for reach and short, punchy written snippets of your story. So I like to think of Threads as the writing equivalent to TikTok. And the people who battle it out between Threads and TikTok, y'all don't have to come for me. But I like to think of Threads as the written version of TikTok. Okay. Short, punchy, high reach. My Threads has the highest reach per month. Right now I'm sitting at like 800,000 reach, a reach of 800,000 in the last 30 days. I did have one thread that's like a little bit viral. But even without that viral thread, my average reach per month is anywhere from 200 to 400,000. So Threads is super high reach for writers. My TikTok, I post similar stuff on TikTok. The reach is not really there, but Threads is great for reach also for my writers. TikTok for my video people. Facebook, when I feel like when I say Facebook, people are like, "What are you, like 80?" But Facebook is great for longer written stories and video storytelling. Facebook has everything: short, punchy, photos, video, reel, live, long form. It has all of it. So if you want to mix things up, I do really strongly suggest Facebook as a great place to get started. You can do it if you have a Facebook and you're like, well, Nikki, it's all friends and family. For one, remember my first product sold to friends and family. But for two, you can either start a new Facebook from scratch, or you're just going to have to be like, oh, well, friends and family, I'm here to start this business and I'm here to make some money with my story and I'm going to start talking. And you just start talking. And as time goes on, that Facebook page will convert into more of like a social media reach platform and less of a friends and family platform. So just keep that in mind. And then the last place would be Substack. I love Substack. I'm still getting acclimated here, but I love it here. This is great for depth, for teaching, higher ticket conversions. There's the private chat feature, which I think is phenomenal. There's obviously the live feature. There is the social media side to Substack too, which kind of operates similarly to Threads, meaning that you can get good reach over here on Substack by sharing little snippets into the Substack notes feature. So, all in all, that was the 4-part framework for how to turn your story and life experiences into a digital product that you can sell. Phase 1 is identifying your sellable story. Phase 2 is turning your story into a framework. Phase 3 is to package that experience into an offer. And then phase 4 is to sell through story-led content. So this is the foundation of my experience to income method. This is how you can take your life experiences and turn them into online income. You can turn this into a full business if you want by having an offer suite, selling different offer, like you can have an offer suite, you can sell one offer over and over, get really good at selling your one and then expand, right? So this is that. Now, if you want more like this, if you want to really zone in on this, I do also offer private coaching on things like this. I have a one-on-one. I have some one-on-one spots available, and I'm going to be opening up the Empress Income Mastery, which is going to be a group coaching container for people who want to take their lived experience and turn it into a sellable digital offer. I am going to post those in the link. I don't have the application yet. So if you want to get like early access to the group coaching piece, you can send me a DM. Just send me Empress or Mastery. I don't care. I'll know what you mean. Send me that and we can discuss that. The other piece, and if you're watching this replay way later, and you don't see a messaging option on there, that's because I've got the application finalized. The application is in the notes. So just keep that in mind. You're either going to see a messaging link or you're going to see an application link. The other thing that I will say is if you are wanting to go the DIY route, you can grab Digitalize Your Expertise. I will put that in the notes as well. That is really good for beginners who are like, this is great, but I need a little bit more help with the tech. I need a little bit more help with, the back end stuff. Inside of Digitalize Your Expertise, you do extract your sellable story the way we just did here, but then I also guide you through on how to create it in Canva, how to sell it in StanStore, how to market it on TikTok, how to market it on Pinterest, and different things like that. So that is inside of Digitalize Your Expertise, which I will also link in the show notes. If you have any questions, send me a DM on Instagram. My username is at Nikki Lynn Mayo, NikkILynnMayo. Okay. You can send me a DM. We can chat through some things and see what is the best route for you. And then as always, subscribe to my Substack. This live was hosted free on Substack. So my subscribers get access to this. You can also upgrade to the Story Selling Chamber if you want. But yeah, find me on Substack, send me a DM on Instagram. If you want to work one-on-one or if you want to work in a group container, let me know and we can get that going for you. But until next time, I want you to get out there and build your confidence and start making sales, start making online income. We are going into 2026. There's literally like no reason why anybody can't make money online. There's so many ways to do it. So, with that, love you all, and I will see you all in the next one.